Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can, and I continue with Tyranny blind. Now apparently Sirin, the Archon of Song, is here, which is interesting. She seems to be like a minor Archon under the command of the voices of Nerat, so maybe she was sent to like subvert the populace towards Kairos, because obviously they are currently opposing him. Let's talk with the people here and obviously with her. The old walls are dangerous. I wouldn't recommend going inside. Okay, so I can't talk to the people. I can just talk to her. Old walls are dangerous.
Sorry,
yeah, I know
can't.
that. You said that just a second ago. Sirin stands here surrounded by a group of villagers. She speaks to them in a soft, dulcet tones, holding them hypnotized with her hand motions. Her headdress flashes as she speaks, and you are unable to tell if it's a trick of the light or the gem in it is actually glowing. She is swept up in her oration and seems completely unaware that you have arrived. There is a lull in her conversation, and she opens up her eyes.
Well, look who's here. And what brings you to Lethian's Crossing? Can't imagine it's the scenery or the quaint locals. Have you come to spoil my fun?
She frowns a little, momentarily lost in thought.
Tunon probably insisted you find me, didn't he? Because we can't let Sirin have any fun, can we? Let's control her. Let's tell her what she can and can't do. Let's use her to destroy nations.
As she speaks, the crowd around her appears agitated, and the air in the room grows heavy and warm. Suddenly she smiles.
But enough of that talk. What do you think of my followers?
She makes a motion over the group gathered at her feet. As she speaks, you feel a peaceful serenity washing over you. The crowd calms and breathing becomes easier. Yeah, of course you shouldn't be doing that. Like, that's literal mind control. That's, like, wrong on several levels. You shouldn't be doing this, Sirin. These people don't truly love you. You're manipulating them.
Don't worry, Fatebinder. I'm just practicing.
While her words and tone convey a careless air, the peace you are feeling tightens in your brain. And a couple of gathering crowds slowly turn their heads to look at you.
Besides, who doesn't love having a legion of adoring lackeys?
She smiles, and the tightness releases from your mind. The heads turn again to face Sirin, adoration shining in their eyes.
Are you going to disband this group too?
Yes, because it's wrong. Like, you know, regardless of whether she intends to release them, if she's just doing it for practice, as she said, it's still wrong. It's toying with people as if they were objects. And, you know, toying with the most intimate element of their personhood, which is their minds. So, stop this. Sirin, I will warn you only once. Stop that now.
Ugh, not this again. All anyone wants is for me to control myself. Why doesn't anyone want me to let loose? I know. You don't have to answer.
She holds up a hand and rolls her eyes again.
That was a joke. I have a little more self-control than that. But maybe you're right. Perhaps if you were to allow me to accompany you. You did activate one of the spires, so your power is something I could learn from. You'd be able to teach me how to control myself.
Okay, Sirin, you may join me. You need someone watching you.
Well then, let's go. If you're gonna teach me the wonders of the world, it's not gonna happen here.
Okay, I'll drop Barry.
Nice seeing you, Fatebinder.
For the time being. Okay, so what's her main? It's wits for magic, and apparently resolve. Okay, let's go like this. What's your spells? Songs. Bringer of Death. Area of Resolve. Sirin's area bolsters your party resolve, extending the duration of their helpful effects and granting them increased parry and dodge. Sure, so this seems to be like a buff tree. Releases a quick sonic blast that deals crush damage. Sure, let's go into the buff tree, I guess. For now. Increases the effectiveness of armor to have their attack reduced. Okay, pretty cool. Non-threatening appearance causes her foes to underestimate her. I don't know what retained breaths are, to be honest. I should perhaps invest in at least one of those songs. Let's go into this. It seems thematically appropriate. A Song of Valor and Defiance, adopted by the Vengeance Guard to boost morale of the rebellion, which gives me bonuses to various stats. Oh, but it requires a particular level, which I don't have. Okay, so I can't go into any of those. Increases the range. When combat begins, she cries out, protecting her nearby allies by increasing endurance and magic defense. Sure, pretty cool. Inspires the party, increasing experience gains for magic and subterfuge skills, additional spell slots. Increases the range, retains breath, which I don't know what it does, but sure. Okay, that's it for the skills. Now, I think the rest of this episode is just going to be devoted to me talking to her, because if I learned anything from my previous companions, is that they have a lot to say. So let's just do that.
Good day, Fatebinder.
She nods to you.
What do you need?
Well, I would like to know more about you. What would you like to know? Tell me about your homeland. What is there to say? It's a fuzzy memory hardly worth recalling. I was born in a northern farming village without a name. That's how out of the way we were. A bunch of families ended up settling near each other, and that was my village. It was about 20 miles from Shadow's Rest, and you probably haven't heard of that either. We were farmers, poor and isolated. And nothing about my home or past is worth dwelling on, Fatebinder. I barely remember my father, my mother is dead, and the only thing people ever wanted from me was my song. The girl is powerful, bring the songbird, we need a blessing. Our crops are withering. What has that bitch done? Her voice falters with the last statement, and she shivers a little. Nothing in your past is worth dwelling on? It looks to me like you remember something. I suppose when an angry mob fears you and what you can do stones your mother... I suppose when an angry mob that fears you and what you can do stones your mother to death while she shields you with her body, it sticks with you. It probably would. Probably would. What do you remember about your family? The good thing about being taken from a home when you're still a child is that you can't miss a childhood you never got. What would you like to know? You were taken from your family? Technically, by the time I was taken, there was no family left to be taken from, but Kairos' forces had gotten word of my talents and decided I was better used taking over the world than helping local farmers. You have no family left. What happened? What do you think? They are dead. My father might not have cared about me, about us, but my mother never would have let anyone take me while she lived. Without anyone to protect me, I was whisked off to Kairos' court. How would you describe your father? Worthless, hopeless, devoid of human emotion. Sometimes I feel like we were complete opposites. He seemed incapable of feeling anything. I seemed to be nothing but raw emotion. Nerat let it slip that my father sold me to Kairos and was responsible for my mother's death. Someone had to egg the crowd on, and someone had to tell Kairos' men where I was. Not that it matters, he's dead, and I'm better off without him. What do you remember about your mother? She's dead, so I don't have much to remember. She loved me, that much I know. But sometimes I do wonder if what she felt was love or fear. Fear for me or of me. And sometimes I don't think there's a difference between the two. My mother loved me when no one else did, and when no one else could. The world wanted nothing but my voice. All my mother wanted was my happiness. She was the only person in my life that did. Tell me about your mother's death. It's a bit... This is all a bit cruel, you know, this relentlessly interrogating people, but I have to do it. Well, I don't have to, you know, but the content in the game is there for me to discover. I want to learn about them because they are my companions, so I am going to do it, but I do want to sort of underscore that I understand that from an in-game perspective, this is actually pretty callous. We have just met, and I'm relentlessly interrogating her about the death of her own family. What do you... tell me about your mother's death. No, Fatebinder, I can't. Please don't make me talk about it. Okay, sure. I sure as hell won't force her to do it. Okay, Sirin, I will never ask you to tell me that story, if you don't want. Thank you. There are some things that are just too painful to remember. Tell me of your father's death. He disappeared after my mother died and I was kidnapped. I didn't hear anything from him for the longest time, so I assumed he had disappeared and I would never see him again. Then someone brought word to me that he had been found. He killed himself, and now he's out of my life. For someone who always has a lot to say, that was incredibly succinct. Is there more? You're relentless, Fatebinder. Did you ever think there was some things I wanted to keep for myself? But yes, you're right, there is more to the story. When I got word that he had been found, I had summoned him to Kairos' court. I wanted to see the man who had condemned me to the life that I was leading. When he arrived, I went to see him privately. I wasn't sure what I would feel. Anger? Hatred? I didn't expect apathy. For the first time in my life, I felt nothing. Standing there, staring at the man who ruined my life, waiting for him to notice me, my heart was dull and disinterested. Then he looked up and smiled. He smiled when he saw me. Can you believe that? He smiled and opened his arms to hug me, and it felt like someone reached into my chest and squeezed my heart, sending hate flooding through my veins. So I sang him a song. I told him how tired he looked, how haggard he seemed. I spoke of the weariness he must feel, the guilt that surely plagued him every day. I asked how he withstood the weight of his betrayal. The burden must be too much to bear. I watched the tears roll down his cheeks as he pulled a dagger from his belt, the sobs that tore from him as he held it before him, thinking about his wife and child, the look of ecstatic relief on his face as he dragged the blade across his neck. Okay, like, I understand her. I understand where she's coming from, but I still think that's intensely wrong. Because she... You know, I'm pretty sure she's going to claim she only showed him what kind of person he is, and then he killed himself because of actual guilt. I think that's how the description is sort of phrased. But I don't really buy that. Obviously, she's psychic. She can influence people's thoughts and moods. They shift in accordance to her own mood. So obviously, to me, it very much seems like she compelled him to kill himself, which is, not very different from killing him herself, but somehow seems more wrong to me. Like, if you wanted him dead, which, again, I understand that. He seemed to have been neglectful and emotionally abusive towards her, and maybe also kind of physically abusive if what she says about him convincing other people to torment her is true. But I still think she went overboard. You made him kill himself? That's horrible. We've all done things we regret, Fatebinder, but this is not one of them. My father was a terrible man who finally heard the song that should have killed him 5 years earlier. Now you know what happened to my father. As I told you before, he killed himself, and that's it. Do you have any siblings? No. I was close with a boy in my village for a time, but his mother stopped letting me play with him when everyone realized what my powers were. That's the closest thing I ever had to a living sibling. A dour expression clouds her face. A living sibling? My brother died very young. I never knew him, so I hardly count him as a sibling. Life in the middle of nowhere is difficult. For a single child to survive, let alone more, is a testament to the parents. She looks at you for a time, her lips a thin line. Her eyes grow red and tears form in the lids. Finally she nods slowly as she breaks her silence. I remember my mother talking about me getting a little brother. It wasn't long before I started singing and my powers started growing. She told me that soon it would be too hard for her to travel with me. Sirin, sweetie, she said, you'll have to go with your daddy. It wouldn't be good for the baby if I kept traveling like that. Maybe after your brother is out here with us, we can all travel together. She looks out to the horizon, her voice breaking. Go on. Everyone wanted the songbird to sing for them, and they paid us so much money, so we went. But I didn't want to go without my mother. She was the only real comfort I had. When I was with her, I felt safe. Nothing could hurt me. The trip was coming up, and I knew she wouldn't be going. I couldn't bear the thought of all those days in the care of my father. Her voice breaks again, and she closes her eyes. So I sang to my baby brother. I told him we were waiting for him. I told him we need to be a family so that we could travel together. I told him he should come out now. I don't know if I meant for it to happen, but I sang the words. No one can But I sang the words. What? I don't know if I meant for it to happen, but I sang the words no one can resist, my voice. Isn't there a word missing somewhere in this sentence? By all accounts, it doesn't seem to make much sense to me. Like, I understand what it means, but it seems to be grammatically wrong. And by the way, this is pretty horrifying. So what I imagine she's going to say in the very next sentence is that she caused her own brother's premature birth by compelling him to be born before he was developed enough. Which, first of all, is a testament to the might of her powers, because she was a child by that point, and she compelled a fetus that doesn't, by all accounts, doesn't even understand language, right? So it had to be emotional rather than intellectual. She compelled a fetus to be prematurely born. My mother's screams cut the song short, and the blood, it was everywhere. I was dragged from the room, but I don't remember who took me. I can only remember staring at my foot for the rest of the afternoon. The pattern soaked into my shoe, the splatter across the top of my toes. I couldn't bring myself to clean it off, I just looked at it. How long had your mother been pregnant? Not long enough for my brother to survive. Maybe he could have, I don't know. The problem is, when I told him he had to come out, I didn't mean I wanted him to be out alive. I don't think he would have survived, even if it was time for my mother to give birth. Okay, so this is actually kind of darker than I anticipated, because I thought she genuinely just wanted her brother to be born, and she didn't understand the concept of having to wait for the end of the pregnancy for the baby to survive. But it seems from the way she's telling it now that she just wanted him gone, regardless of whether he lived, so that her mother could travel with her. So it's kind of married whether she actually commanded him to be stillborn sort of directly. People came and went all day. There was a lot of crying, and nobody looked at me the same way after that. My mother told me things like that happened all the time, but even at 5, I knew what I had done. A part of me was happy. I wanted my mother back, and I got her. She still loved me. She died protecting me, but I terrified her. Every time I opened my mouth, I could see her flinch, and after my brother died, she was never around when I sang. She couldn't bear to watch me. Let me ask something else. How long have you been practicing magic? Always. I have no memory of being without the power. It has been my driving force and who I am and I am who I am because of it. Every defining moment of my life is because of my voice and the power behind it. I have become what it made me, and it is what I have done with it. Tell me about your time with the voices of Nerat. What would you like to know? How did you meet Nerat? I met him when I was unceremoniously dumped on its doorstep by Kairos. All I felt toward it since that moment was sheer hatred. When one person tires of me, they just hand me off to another. I seem to be quite a handful. No one is truly prepared to deal with me, I suppose. I was in its possession for 3 years, stuck doing what it wanted until you came along and started messing around with Kairos's plans. Why did Kairos give you to Nerat? I made the mistake of trying my song on Kairos, and forgiveness isn't exactly in the Overlord's vocabulary. Interestingly enough, I think it almost worked. Can you imagine how differently things would have turned out if I had a little more practice? Okay, this is very impressive, if that's true. I was brought out to one of the lavish garden gatherings thrown at the palace. Kairos loved showing me off, impressing the gathered elite. So I performed, I sang, I danced, I convinced the people to join in. Then, in the middle of it, I had a brilliant idea to work one more performance into the show, something that would be the ultimate end to the evening. I added a counterpoint to my song and directed it at Kairos. In it, I mentioned how it would be in everyone's best interest if Kairos ended up impaled on a sword. I honestly didn't think it would work, but hey, why not to try, right? It went as far as Kairos unsheathing one of the Royal Guard's swords, but then everything stopped. I don't know why. It was probably me. I got too excited and lost my control, but whatever the reason, Kairos was suddenly out of my control and let out a terrible shout. Wow. So she almost made Kairos kill himself? What? Like, and that was years ago. Like, is that true? I have no option to question that, so I am assuming yes. I am assuming she sounds sincere when she says that, but it seems insane, because it seems to suggest that she's potentially more powerful than Kairos. So if we ever figure out how to remove that helmet of hers, things might be shaken up. Weren't you afraid of getting caught? Of course I was, but I've seen how the world works, especially Kairos's world. People don't live long, and when they are disposed of, it's violent and sudden. I figured I was dead anyway, so why not try to rid the world of a horrible threat? Really, you were trying to save the world? Fine, I was trying to save my own skin, happy? I was 12, so forgive me if self-preservation was in front of my mind. Oh look, a young lady who thinks of nothing but herself. Do you want to hear the story or not? Yes, so she was 12 at the time and she almost made Kairos kill himself? Go on. Everyone stared, frozen by the yell echoing back at us. Kairos quickly recovered and gave the appearance of cheering us on, but I was convinced I was about to die. Interestingly, my execution never came. I finally realized I couldn't have been punished at the party, because Kairos would have to admit I had exerted my will onto the Overlord, and without a good reason to call for my death, I couldn't have been executed afterwards. I was the songbird. I did nothing but spread Kairos' will and gather the armies. Would you execute your best and most beloved recruiting tool? So Kairos worked with Nerat, and they gave me this helmet to bring me back in line. Then I was handed to Nerat, that monster, because it is one thing in the world I cannot control. Present company excluded, Fatebinder. Why can't you control me? Have you tried? Like, I guess you did, back at the camp where you ordered me to remove your helmet. Why can't you control him? I have been inside his mind, and time after time I've never been able to get a handle of what's going on in there. Every time I talk to it, I feel like it's a different person talking to me, and every one of them wants something different. And one in particular wants something it's never ever going to get. Wait a minute, what does Nerat want from you that he's never going to get? Come on, Fateminder, you can't be that naive. I'm still a child, and I know about adult urgings, as one of my old teachers so clumsily put it. Somewhere inside that chaotic mind, I saw the most depraved and disturbing desires I have ever had the misfortune of feeling. No matter what Nerat says to you, do not trust it. That will always end badly. Okay. So apparently she claims that the voices of Nerat has like a pedo thing going. Like, how old is she now? I guess, you know, it isn't really pedophilia at this point. Like, she's like 15, 16? Like, by the standards of this world, she's a woman grown. It's just that in our current society, we would consider that very wrong, because obviously she's underage by our standard. But I'm not quite sure whether they keep the same standard. I would be terribly surprised if they did. But still, you know, yuck and wrong. But to be honest, I didn't need that to distrust the voices of Nerat. I distrusted him the first time he was described, because he's immensely creepy. What has Nerat had you do for him? Now, if that isn't the question that goes right to the heart of the storm, I think you should ask me what it hasn't made me do, or at least tried to make me do. Tell me more about that headdress. It's the bane of my existence, and something that's incredibly painful to talk about, so why not? She shrugs. What does it do? It makes me impotent. Do you have any idea what it's like to have a hurricane raging inside you, to feel the gale crashing against you to be released, but only feel a gentle summer's breeze? Kairos and Nerat made it just for me. If I attempt anything more powerful than a simple tune, it will kill me. Isn't that simply wonderful? Honestly, to be so terrified of a mere child. Why do you have it? Well, that's kind of obvious, but I might have tried to kill Kairos once. He and Nerat decided I posed too much of a threat, so they muzzled me. I was their attack dog, and they pulled out my teeth. You can hardly be surprised if the dog tries to bite you, if that's all you teach him to do. Why can't you simply take it off? Gee, Fatebinder, I never thought of that. Here, could you unclasp it for me so that I could get out of it? Because I'll die if it isn't removed the proper way, you simpleton. Do you think I would leave it on otherwise? Well, if you can't take it off, then why did you try to get me to remove it when we met? How can someone so powerful be so stupid? I knew you wouldn't be able to remove it. That's not what I was trying to do. You're a Fatebinder. You honestly think I was going to pass up an opportunity to try and control a Fatebinder? How do you know you'll die if you remove the helmet? Because I doubt Nerat and Kairos would go through all the trouble to just play a trick on me. Something this subtle, elaborate, and long-lasting isn't really their style, at least not Nerat's. Plus, Nerat told me the helmet would kill me if I removed it, and while it might be a lying monster, it loves telling the truth. if the truth causes an extra bit of pain. You believe him? Maybe he's just toying with you. Have you tried removing it? I'm not going to risk my continued existence on a maybe. Plus, I already tried when they first put it on me. I've got one of the worst headaches I've ever had, so I'll leave it where it is for now. What would it take to remove it? Someone beating the information out of Nerat or Kairos. They are the only ones who know how it was constructed or how it works. I may ask people to remove it, but I know they won't be able to. That's not going to stop me from trying, though. Why the headdress? Why not use magic to gag you? They tried magic, it didn't really work. The problem is, spells can be broken, counter spells can be found, guards can be bribed, and people can have accidents. Nerat and Kairos are the only ones who know how to remove this without killing me. The answer is locked somewhere in Nerat's insane, and Kairos' currently not so conveniently located heads.
What do you need?
Do you know anything about what's going on in the tiers? I know a great deal of things about what's going on here, considering I am the root cause of at least half of it. What would you like to know? How long have you been here? Since the beginning of the occupation. Kairos wanted me out of sight, but still in use, so I was given to Nerat. It used me to gather fodder for the chorus. What do you think about Tunon? He makes me uncomfortable. There's nothing behind that mask. It's dark and empty. What do you mean? Everyone has a presence. It's how my magic works. I reach into them and convince their presence to do what I want. He has no presence. When I reached into him, there was nothing. It was bleak. I never want to feel that again. If you have to reach into someone's mind to control them, how did you influence entire armies to do what you want? I can't influence an army, but I can persuade them to feel the way I want them to. If I want to get someone to do a specific thing for me, I have to get inside their head, and that requires a lot more effort. No one can keep me out, but if they are aware of what I'm doing, I can't force them to do anything. At least not with that thing on my head. She knocks a hand against her helmet. Really, I don't know how it works, it just does. You might as well ask me where lightning comes from. I want to know about Kairos. What would you like to know? How did you come to work for Kairos? After my father betrayed me and my mother got killed, I was taken by Kairos' men. I honestly don't know where we went, other than it seemed to take forever to get there. Then I was put in a school. It was a wonderful and a horrible time. I learned how to control and maximize my power, but they underestimated my abilities or overestimated theirs. I think it was more the latter than the former. They unleashed my true power. Did they believe I wouldn't try to run with it? They tried to train and mold me, and in that they succeeded, but they also tried to brainwash and break me, and in that they failed spectacularly, but I was punished for it. Why were you punished? They assumed my abilities were exaggerated. They were powerful mages who spent years training in their art. How could a little girl ever hope to rival their prowess? I grew tired of their condescension. I hated them for treating me like a child. The rules, discipline, the training. They had killed my mother, and I would make them pay for it. One day I got bored in class. The teacher's droning voice was putting me to sleep in the afternoon heat, so I thought I would have a little fun. He was distracted and he let his defenses down. He didn't consider me a threat. How do you know his defenses were down? I can just feel it. If someone is alert or aware of what's going on, it's a lot harder to get inside, but I know when they are vulnerable. I know how to take advantage of an opening and climb right in. I started humming, noting it would attract... I started humming, nothing that would attract his attention, of course. A lullaby my mother sang to me, fitting, I thought, to invade this man's mind, with a song taught to me by a woman they destroyed. I could tell I had gotten inside when he slowed down ever so slightly. I started singing wordlessly, standing, working in hand motions. They were completely unnecessary, but I was trained to be a performer. Then I worked in my words. The window, I sang to him. Look at the window. He turned entranced and stared outside, his mouth moving silently as he dreamed an answer to my question. No, what's at the window? What's out there? I asked him through my song. What could that be? I was elated. The fool had left himself alone and vulnerable, and this 8-year-old had dominated his mind. He walked to the window, intently staring at something he couldn't see. Of course, I didn't mean for him to fall. He was looking out of the window and reached up as if to touch it. Whatever he was looking at, to touch whatever he was looking at, and before I could stop him, he was gone. It looked like he was trying to catch something as he fell from sight. I won't say I'm sorry he died. He was a horrible man, but I didn't mean to do it. However, I was elated. The taste of power was intoxicating. I didn't get to taste it again for a long time. How were you punished? They wanted to cut out my tongue, even at 8. I don't blame them. It's what I would have done. But Kairos said no, doing possibly the one kind act she ever did for me. Without the power of speech, I was essentially useless. So they muzzled me. They knew simply holding my mouth shut wasn't going to be sufficient, so they got creative. Using sage magic, they put my voice in stasis. When I wasn't in class, I could go through the motions of speech, but nothing came out. And they did take pleasure in it. Between the classes they gave me chores, they berated me, they beat me. I was their slave. The only reason I lived was by Kairos' whim, but I was tortured by everyone else's. There were at least 2 teachers in my class after the incident, and I was always accompanied by 2 guards. Both of whom have been deafened, so I couldn't affect them. I accidentally killed one man, and they were acting like I destroyed a realm. Well, to be honest, you killed a man at 8 with nothing but your mind. Like, that's pretty frightening to me. I suppose that's what they thought I would do next, and who knows, maybe that's what I am about to do. What was your life like with Kairos? For several years I was surrounded by people who would smile to my face and sneer when I turned away. They were supposed to be my mentors, my teachers, but all they ever did was resent me. They taught me to refine and control my voice. My power became more directed, more powerful, more subtle. I never needed to specifically say what I wanted people to do. I could just think what I wanted, how I felt, and the weaker the mind, the faster they would respond. It still required me to sing, or at least make music with my voice, but I could say one thing, but mean something else entirely, and the magic worked. Everything was done for Kairos' edification. They asked for signs of her power, and I was to bring them about. People praised my name to the extent that was allowed, but if the focus of adoration ever truly pointed towards me, it was quickly stifled. I didn't see much of Kairos. She was busy taking care of her affairs, but I was never allowed to forget by whose power I was allowed to exist. I was paraded around like a new jewel, and since I had real power, it took a while for the luster to fade, but when I tarnished, I corroded through. And when I stopped being a pleasant distraction, I was passed off to Nerat to be forgotten. How long did you work for Kairos? 5 years. 2 years of dedicated training, 2 years of training interspersed with travel, performing miracles in Kairos' name, and then a year being his pet. Wait a minute, you've called Kairos both him and her. Did I? How clumsy of me. Must have been a slip of the tongue. She smiles mischievously. Is Kairos a man or a woman? You don't really know, don't you? That's fascinating. I assumed the Fatebinder would have been given an audience with him. It doesn't seem like she would let you perform actions in his name without speaking to you. That's part of the mystique, isn't it? If your enemies don't know anything about you, how can they properly plan? So, why would Kairos let anything out that he didn't want the world to know? Well, tell me, Sirin. No. A lady has to keep some secrets, and this is going to be mine. It feels good to have some power in this relationship. It's not going to matter once you defeat him anyway. she'll be gone. What do you think of Kairos? Honestly, I didn't really think of him at all at first. If I wasn't getting daily reminders that he owned me and could have me killed anytime he wanted, I would have completely forgotten he existed. Don't misunderstand me, I despise him. It is because of him I don't have a family. It is because of him my mother is dead. It is because of him I am here instead of anywhere else. But as a child, I was too busy to interact with him much. What can you tell me about the Scarlet Chorus? If I never talk to another chorus member in my entire life, I will consider it a success, no matter what else happens. She folds her arms across her chest and levels a steely gaze at you. What do you want to know? You weren't a member of the chorus? What? Absolutely not. The only reason I worked with them is because I was being forced to. Once Kairos had this monstrosity placed on my head, I really had no choice. I am not powerful enough to force them to let me go, and they had the numbers to overwhelm me if I tried anything, so I did what I told, until you showed up. What was it like working with them? Well, at first I was treated like a queen. I spent all of my time recruiting, and let's be honest, the Scarlet Chorus isn't choosy, so it was easy to convince people to join. Towards the end, I actually started fearing for my life. With that thing on my head, I couldn't effectively control an entire army, so hobbling me was quite an intelligent thing for Kairos to do. If anyone had realized I couldn't hold them all back, I would have been in big trouble. Your little stunt at Vengeance Well couldn't have come at a better time. What do you think of them? I would have thought my look of disgust kind of answered that question, Fatebinder. Yeah, you and me both. They are worthless, hopeless, disorganized bunch of savages who would tear themselves apart from the inside. What's your opinion on their methods? They randomly grab anyone and anything they can get their hands on and hope they will work if they beat them enough. Sounds like the making of a fantastic army to me. I am repulsed by them and everything they do. Nerat is a disgusting excuse for a leader, and I look forward to the day I can watch the life drain from its insane eyes. Am I being clear enough for you, Fatebinder? Yeah, crystal clear. And we share an opinion on that, at the very least. What do you know about the Disfavored? I don't really know much about them, Fatebinder. I never got a chance to work with them, so I don't think I'll be much help on this topic. What do you think of Graven Asher? He seems capable enough, he's organized and truly seems to care about his men, contrary to practically anyone else I've met here. Have you seen them in action? Briefly at the few battles of Kairos' conquest, but Nerat liked to keep me locked up tight, so I never got a good look at them fighting. You never worked with them? Not directly. I've been used to inspire people, and occasionally the Disfavored were in those groups, but if you're looking for anything of merit from me on the Disfavored, I'm not going to be of much use. What about other groups in the tiers? What would you like my opinions on? Tell me about the Stonestalker tribe. Not even worthy of my attention. A beast is a beast, and you can't ever make an animal be anything more than what it is. Tell me about the local rebel groups. Avenging Guard. Are they even still pertinent? After the events of Vengeance Well, I would have thought no one would want to talk to them anymore. And just because you decided to throw your lot in with them doesn't change my opinion. They may have held off Kairos' forces, but I think anyone could do that in an ancient fortress with nearly impenetrable walls. Tell me about the Unbroken. I haven't had much exposure to them. Asha was intent with dealing with that problem, so they didn't ask for my help. Tell me about the Bronze Brotherhood. They are not the most helpful of people, but they seem like they want what's best for Lethian's Crossing. Plus, it was easier for me to recruit my own followers with them around. I didn't have to worry about anyone being taken by the Scarlet Chorus or killed by the Disfavored. Tell me about the Mages Guilds. Generally, I don't like throwing in with the other mages. I've not had a good experience with them in the past, so I keep my distance. And they are so demanding, you ask them, very nicely I might add, how to cast a spell, and they insist they are not a charity, and they are not going to hand over their secrets out of the goodness of their hearts. Right, like there was anything good about that one. And I didn't even use my magic on him. That's gratitude for you. She trails off and gives you an intent look. Suddenly your head feels like it's too small for your brain. She closes her eyes and takes a breath, and the feeling dissipates. And tell me about the sages. I can't say I'm too happy with them, since it was their magic that bound my voice when I was a child, but they are an influential group with an infinite knowledge. At least they were. Can you imagine how powerful you could become if you had access to their collections? Tell me about the Earthshakers. Incredibly powerful but strangely focused in their studies. Why would you want to pour your energy into one thing? Branch out. The magic they are missing out on is incredible. Tell me about the Forgebound. The group that Kairos used to make my hobo. The less I have to think about them, the better. They might be good craftsmen, but unless they craft me a way out of this prison, I'll let you deal with them, thank you.
What do you need?
Tell me what you know about edicts. Anything I would say would be a wild guess. That's why I'm here with you. You seem to have a connection to the power of this land far beyond anything an Archon is capable of. It intrigues me. I want to learn what it is and harness it. Sadly, I don't have the magic needed to enact or break an edict. At least in my current state. Maybe if you got this helmet out of my head. She gives you a knowing stare. I'd remove it if I could. Just because escape is futile doesn't make the prisoner is going to give up trying. Doesn't hurt to ask. She holds up her hands. You're an Archon. You have to know something about the edicts. You'd think that, wouldn't you? With all of my training and education, Kairos left a very big void in it, almost like it was intentional.
What do you need?
What do you think about the state of the world? What is there to say? Kairos' two major leaders can't stop themselves or their armies from fighting like a bunch of children. Neither of them seem to be capable of dealing with the rebels that are taking them down, which as far as I'm concerned is how it should be. The less of the tears infected by Kairos, the better. If we could eliminate the armies entirely, I would consider that to be the true victory. What do you think of our travel companions?
Are we trading in gossip now, Fatebinder? Or are you collecting information to use against us?
She arches her eyebrows inquisitively.
What do you want to know about?
Tell me about Barrick.
The walking ring pile? Let's hope you never have to go anywhere unnoticed. There's nothing particularly wrong with him, I suppose, but he doesn't seem overly bright. I mean, what kind of idiot do you have to be if you can't even take off your armor?
Well, that's kind of hypocritical of you to say, which I believe is very much the point of the joke.
I'll admit he can handle himself in a fight, but he could use a little more up here.
She taps the side of her head. Tell me about Ebb.
She's got some power in there, that's for sure. And as long as I'm crippled, I will, begrudgingly mind you, admit she could probably win if we were pitted against each other. Although I'm more than happy to give her a try. Are you game, Ebb? Think you could take me out?
I'm sorry, sweetie, I'm confused. Are you offering me a duel or something a little more down and dirty?
Ebb winks at Sirin, who turns a deep scarlet and looks away. Okay, so she's hitting on her as well. She seems to hit on everyone, just for the lols of it.
You know what I meant!
Sirin puts a hand to her headdress and looks at Ebb, chewing on the corners of her mouth.
Oh, don't worry, dear. You're far too young for me. I like someone with a little wear and tear on them, and not just up here.
She puts her hand on her head and winks again.
Though I I suppose I should watch myself around her. You never know how people will react to a challenge.
Tell me about Lantry.
I'm jealous of him. I've heard so much about the Vellum Citadel, and he actually got to see it before all the unpleasantness.
She trails off, a sour expression on her face, her wiggling fingers miming tiny explosions.
The sheer amount of power lost that day is only dwarfed by the amount of power required to cause the destruction, and the power to stop it. The sages have my respect. And, by extension, Lantry. Although, I'm not overly happy it was sage magic they used to bind my tongue when I was a child. I can hardly hold him responsible for that.
How kind of you, my lady. It's heartening to hear that someone of your immense station considers a lowly sage like me to be worthy of your attention.
Lantry performs a deep bow to Sirin.
Although not all sages are necessarily worthy of praise. Some are a little overly fond of excesses, of one kind or another.
She arches an eyebrow. Tell me about Verse.
That bitch? I'd walk her off the spire if I knew I could get away with it. I don't know why you even waste your time with her. She's rude, violent, base, impatient, and entirely pointless. You should keep much better company, Fatebinder. You asked me what I thought. I can't help it if the facts are painful to swallow.
She sighs and shrugs.
What do you need?
Okay, I guess that's it for now. Let's go then. I will actually go in here now. Okay, I'm back. So, I will be going inside here, but I think I will save the actual beginning of the exploration of the old walls for the next time, because I only have around like 5 minutes and the location seems to be quite big. So I will save here and end it for now. That's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.